is the Vintage RPG Podcast, your source for the best in classic and contemporary RPGs. With your hosts, Hambone and Stu.
Welcome to Vintage RPG Podcast, coming at you again from the clubhouse hidden somewhere in the swamps of New Jersey. I'm John Hambone McGuire, and with me, as always, is the founder and publisher of Unwinnable. The last time he went back to school, he perfected the triple Lindy, Stu Horvath.
The what?
Wow. The triple Lindy?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You've never seen Back to School, Rodney Dangerfield?
Oh, I mean, yeah, like a million years ago. I'm not really a comedy guy.
Holy shit. That's apparent.
Yeah, no, they don't. That sort of stuff just doesn't embed in my mind.
Well, listen, for those who have gotten that joke, I am confident when you are driving in your car or walking on the treadmill, that hit all the right spots. But Stu's not a comedy guy. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, it's sad. I'm also a college dropout.
Me too. I know. I did try to go back to school like 4 times. It just, fourth time wasn't the charm. It just wasn't for me. But it is for me having our friends on the show to chat about the cool stuff that they're doing. Mark Sable is with us today talking about the continuing education program he is hosting for writing adventures for tabletop role-playing games at the School of Visual Arts. Mark, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Am I allowed to say Shakespeare for everyone? Is that
sure?
That's what that's another back to school joke that I've never heard anybody say I'm not into comedy. It's like I'm not into laughter.
I mean, it is just a general taste thing. Like I'm more interested in like stuff that veers serious. But at some point in my life, I just decided that it was good shtick to pretend that I don't laugh or have a sense of humor.
But I will tell you this: when you do get a pop out of Stu, it is like huge, and your joke is like really good. So you tuck that one away and save it for a rainy day.
Yeah.
So, Mark, this is a pretty cool thing. I saw you post about it on Instagram about a week or so back, and I was really excited for you. For those of you who are not familiar, in New York City, there is a school called the School of Visual Arts, where you learn a lot, literally, about the arts of like making comics and so much more. And now they are doing this pretty cool course for tabletop role-playing games. So why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about it?
So yeah, I've my main background is comics. I've been writing comics. Oh God, this is going to be it's going to be either year 19 or year 20, depending if you date from when my first pitch got accepted or from when my first book got published. So and I've been teaching at SVA in a graduate program there that I helped found. It's called a Master's in Visual Narrative program. I've been teaching there for 10 years, which is also crazy. And in the master's program I teach in, it covers everything, a lot of comics. And I mean, SVA, for people who don't know, is just an incredible tradition of not just graduates, but and teachers in terms of like Klaus Janson, Walt Simonson, Howard Chaykin, Dave Mazzucchelli.
I heard back in the day a lot of stories about Carmine Infantino teaching some really uproarious classes at SVA.
I have too. I want to make sure that they're all good stories, but there's been great things, and there are still legendary people there. There are still legendary people there. I forget if Klaus still teaches there, but and just great graduates. The late John Paul Leone went there, and besides comics, there I taught screenwriting. I have taught games writing more sort of generally for like video games and things like that. And I've had students do RPGs. I think one of the most fun things has been just like, and I don't take any credit for my graduates, but I take a lot of, for the alumni, but I take a lot of like pride in that so many of my students have gone on to do just great things in comics and other mediums. But yeah, I mean, usually I teach grad students, and that's fun. And I got to design my mandate when I got there was like, teach the writing class you'd want to take. And they really let me run with that. I'm teaching continuing education now, which I love because it's open to everyone. So, you don't have to have any kind of degree. You can be any age, and it's an online class. So that means your location doesn't matter either. So, I mean, I live in California, the SVA is in New York, So hopefully people still get to take advantage of like, the alumni network of SVA and meeting great artists, but at the same time, you can be anywhere. But yeah, the class itself, is sort of, I approached it with the same mindset of, so it's writing adventures for tabletop RPGs. And I think I approached it with sort of the same mindset I did when I was, coming up with a comics class, which, back when I started, there were like at universities, there weren't any. And I feel like at this point, I've looked, like I haven't found at like actual universities like that they're offering, many game writing classes. And to the extent they're usually focused on video games. They're definitely not focused on tabletop RPGs. I might be missing someone somewhere, so if I apologize, but I feel like, this is the class that I want. I feel like there's such a vibrant, on the one hand, there's such a vibrant, and you guys are talking about it all the time, there's such a vibrant indie RPG scene at this end. And I think there are some good books, on one of the last podcasts you guys just did, John, you mentioned Goodman Games, like how to write adventure modules that don't suck, which is wonderful. I think, the books tend to be more like, collections of essays and which are great, but like in terms of like a step-by-step process. And I'm not somebody who believes that like, whether it's a comic or a game, that there's like one way to approach it. But I do think having a step-by-step process helps. I also think, the advantage of a class is like, one of the biggest things, just having taken way too many writing classes over the years, is just having the accountability and having feedback, and like, not just from me, but from, your fellow classmates. One of the things I remember, I was thinking of this, like I went to grad school for playwriting and screenwriting, at NYU at like their Tisch thing. And I remember, they told us in the beginning when they bring in these really nice guests, like, and I remember like Joel Cohen came in, like of the Coen brothers.
Oh, wow.
And which was so cool. And, and I'm sure we all just asked really dumb questions, but, I remember like before they brought him in. And I think some of this was to get us to stop from like giving them, this is back in the day. So it was like business cards. It wasn't giving, some like, giving them our Instagram address or something, but it was like, remember they would say like, listen, we're going to bring in really good speakers, and, and some of the teachers are well known, like Spike Lee taught at the school and stuff like that. But it's like, those aren't going to be the people that help you in your career. It's going to be your classmates who like you might look at as competition, or you might think, oh, they can't help me now. But in like, maybe in 5 or 10 years, those are going to be the people that help you in it. And it really turns out to be true. And I think one of my goals with this class is, and it's something I think I've achieved with the graduate program, is like starting a community of RPG creators that can support each other and trying to like, to foster that environment. And, I'm in touch with a lot of my old students, but one of the things that makes me happiest, besides seeing them succeed, is seeing how they keep in touch and support each other. And, so I'm really hoping to start that kind of environment. I guess the other thing I would say is, I feel like it's been said that like, I think that there's just been a lot of kind of institutional knowledge lost, that like, if you look at something, and I love 5e, although I'm more of an OSR person, I'm enjoying playing in Stu's Old School Essentials Wes March's campaign. I've only had one character killed, so that
he has to say that, or I'll kill another.
Yes, I know. I've only had one character. I should say yet, right? But yeah. Like, if you look at like the 5th edition Dungeon Master's Guide, like I feel like it certainly doesn't tell you how to like write an adventure module, and I would argue it doesn't even really tell you how to like create an adventure. And that I think what winds up happening is you wind up modeling them after, if you're lucky and about like, indie RPGs, there are some great things to model it after. If you're not, it's like, are you just supposed to model it after one of these monstrous, tomes that, Wizards of the Coast releases, I guess with increasing frequency, but like what, twice a year, that
are meant for like a year of play, right? Like they're just not what we think of as like a single session adventure at all.
And I've run some of them, and I think I don't want to be somebody that's slagging on Wizards, but it's like, they're mostly not sandboxes. Like even the last one I ran, and it took over a year to run it, but was the Icewind Dale campaign, Rime of the Frost Maiden, and it has a nice sandboxy part in the middle. I mean, relatively, a relative sandbox, but it quickly becomes, railroad might be a little too harsh, but pretty much a railroad by the end. And I feel like, you go back and you look at like AD&D for all its, or even, original Dungeons and Dragons, like for all the flaws with that book, and it's not as well organized, and that's why, OSE and things like that exist. They gave you even some like modular procedures or procedural generation for how to like create an adventure. And so I'd love to be able to sort of bring that back, but add into it all of the innovations indie RPGs have brought in the past, couple of decades, as well as just, this is not a Dungeons and Dragons class. I mean, it is, and if that's what you want to come in and write, I will support you. But if you want to write a Call of Cthulhu adventure, we're definitely going to talk about mysteries. Like if you want to do cyberpunk, I mean, really, literally whatever system you bring in, again, unless it's like, something really like, offensive, then you're welcome. You're welcome, to work for. I was trying to remember was it like Fatale? What is like infamously like 90s?
God, yeah, no, I know exactly the one you're talking about, but the name escapes me. It's like it's like an abbreviation, but it's like a name, right?
Yeah, there's that, or like the erotic role playing game.
God, yeah.
There's got to be some limit, but
yeah.
But other than that, genuinely, like, hey, if you want to write, not that there are many modules published for most story games, because kind of the idea is you're collaborating with your creators. But if somebody wants to work on something in that, like, I will absolutely support that. Use their own system. It's all of that.
So not really a lecture class, more of like a workshop or studio class where like the learning is in the doing.
Yes. I mean, look, I definitely am going to have, presentations, right? And I definitely have, okay, not just best practices, but I kind of modeled it a little, pulling from a lot of different things, but like, if you remember the Gygax 75 thing where you're designing a campaign, I'm pulling some things for that. So like, I will talk about, these are what I think you need to have for a dungeon crawl, right? It may be some very simple things about like starting small, but at the same, then expanding, and I don't know if we're still using the term, but the late, Janelle Jacquet, like Jacquezing the dungeon, adding loops to it, adding multiple entrances, things like that. Talking about mysteries and using it to like, there's like the 3 clue rule, which I think I want to make sure I credit everybody right. I believe is like Justin Alexander's blog, The Alexandrian. But, so there'll be like lessons, but mostly I want it to be learning by doing, which will be a combination of like, there'll be homework assignments and I'll be giving feedback for that, but also just live, like, let's create stuff together. I think it's fun to sort of do that, almost like crowdsource something. So like, I mean, people will be able to create their own stuff. And that's the goal at the end, is like, if you have something that's it might not be ready to be published like the day the class is ended, but have something that gets you well on your way. I also think besides that, I think there's a lot of fun in sort of like kind of crowdsourcing something and seeing, not crowdsourcing sounds like fundraising, but like, just getting a bunch of people in a virtual room and saying like, okay, like we're going to design a dungeon, like, let's vote on a theme, then let's go like room by room and say like, okay, this is the trap room. What are certain things? And I think doing things like that they're fun in and of themselves. And I mean, it's part of the fun of RPGs are just being able to be creative collaboratively. But I think it also just shows you that it's not, I mean, I don't want to say it's not that hard to do. It's hard. It's not hard to do to design an adventure. It's hard to do one well. But yeah, I want it to be, and I know it'll be just a really interactive class. And, I'm hoping we get a good group of students that will be supportive of each other during the semester, maybe play games and play test each other's material during the semester. And then hopefully beyond that.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, right? Essentially, a course like this does well to debunk the myth that being able to create a tabletop role-playing adventure is beyond most people's ability, which is a complete falsehood, right? I was on a panel about a week back for Goodman Games. They did the Indie RPG Creator Summit. It was sponsored by Goodman Games through Backerkit. And it was on podcasting, and people are asking us questions, we're talking about it, and my whole riff was like, it's not hard to do. Like, anything worth doing will always be hard work, but actually going and being the one to do it, it's not hard. Like, you need to have the gumption to get started, right? And something like this I think is really cool because it really does play to the actual nature of what a tabletop role-playing game is, which is collaboration. And doing it live the way you're doing it, Mark, I think is pretty rad because it does, I don't want to say put pressure on a person, but it does give them a little more, you put a little bit of a fire under their ass to be present instead of just kind of, okay, I bought this course, I'm going to put it on the background and I'm going to half pay attention to it, but spend the rest of the time on my phone. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm hoping. And look, I've taken, I teach online courses and I've also taken them, and I've definitely, there have definitely been ones where I've looked at the phone, and I know the ones that I haven't. I mean, one of the great things about teaching at SVA is like, I get to take, I teach writing, but I get to take my own classes. I'm allowed to take 2 continuing education classes for free every semester. And I've been taking advantage of that since the pandemic with art classes, particularly. Like, I've been writing comics this long, but during the pandemic, I'm like, I'd love to learn how to draw. And I found that the classes that I've been most engaged with are the ones where like we're actually drawing for, sometimes 3 hours. I'm not going to make everybody, I'm not going to make people draw in this class for 3 hours. And that's a lot. But it's like, it's amazing how that time flies, and I don't have the urge to look at my phone. In fact, I probably need to set it to get myself to stand up and, not develop carpal tunnel. But no, I really think there is something in that. I think I want people to be engaged. It's not going to be, if people want to play games outside of it, it's not going to be like playing a game exactly, but it's going to be back and forth. And it's not me delivering lectures. It's going to be, it's valuable to get feedback, but it's also valuable to get feedback from people other than me. And I think the best feedback sometimes comes in my classes from students just giving each other feedback. It's something I really push. Even if they have maybe less expertise than I do in a particular area, they're always going to bring a different perspective. And I think, like you said, it is, I've published adventures, you've published adventures, and we kickstarted them and stuff like that. And I think it's not beyond people, I don't want to say, oh, well, anybody can do it and then don't take the class. Look, that's true with anything. It's like, there are plenty of, you look at filmmakers and some people, there are some that like Scorsese who are, and Spike Lee, who are film school people, and I guess you put like Spielberg and Lucas, they're the West Coast film school people, and then there are Tarantino. But again, just providing a framework, and this isn't asking somebody to commit to a degree. It's a pass-fail class, so there's low stakes, but I still think having some of those stakes of just like, hey, I'm gonna ask you to hand things in, and it's like, I'm not here to punish somebody or like make you feel bad if you don't hand something in. But I think like, I really do think having that accountability helps. Even if it's as small as something as like, last year when people did the, Dungeon 23 and just committed to every week, like coming up with a new level for a mega dungeon. This is a much smaller version of that. But I think that accountability helps.
Well, I'm sitting here thinking like I've written a lot of adventures, not for publication, just for table. And I'm trying to I'm just sort of thinking about like what's my methodology and how would I transmit that methodology to another person for them to use? And I'm like failing because like I don't think I really have a method. Like I've read a lot of these things and I've played a lot. So like I kind of just sort of instinctively know like how to cobble something together enough that I could put it to the table and folks will have fun. And I think that's like, even if that kind of like, even if that's the takeaway for your students, I think that's like a net positive, because I feel like in the last 10 years or so, not intentionally, but I think that official D&D and the rise of the actual plays has chipped away a little bit at the idea that anyone can do this, and that a certain amount of like janky improvisation is okay. That literally anybody could sit down and learn the tools well enough to kind of throw together something that that is playable and people will have fun playing.
Well, I think this course is a nice intersection between having done what we've done, which is learn through osmosis, right?
Yeah.
And being able to adapt that to our own creative processes, and then meeting that at a nice intersection where Mark can take his own knowledge from that, but also the institutional knowledge that you mentioned earlier in the episode, Mark, that a lot of times gets lost in the translation between, like, you trying to explain to your buddy how you did this versus being able to be like, hey, this is why I did this, and this is why these choices are made, and why this template is the way it is. And I think that there is something that's very exciting about that, being able to present that language and that experience to a new group of people who may be coming into this for the first time. Because I imagine there's going to be students who may be coming at this from a place of like, hey, they're like me and Stu, we know it, but we don't know why we know it. Versus people who are also like, hey, we want to learn this for the first time, and finding a nice baseline common ground that everyone could work together on.
Yeah, that made me think of two quick things. I mean, the first is, and this is how I've been approaching, comics writing for a long time, which is like, I've definitely developed a methodology, but I always tell my students, I'm like, it's a toolbox and it's not a formula. I just don't believe there is a formula for art, even for things that are as formulaic as screenwriting. Like, there's not one right way to do it. But my hope is, like, if I give you a bunch of tools, like, you don't need to use all of them, but even if you just use one of them, I mean, and hopefully more than that, but like, that's something now that you can add to your arsenal. But beyond that, it's like, yes, I would love if there are people that want to be able to professionally publish, I'm there to support that. And I mean, I've done it, and I can, talking about pitching and talking about, crowdfunding and all that kind of stuff. And I'm there to support it during the class. And I'm there to help students after the class, like, following up and boosting people on social media and that stuff. But I also feel like I'm hoping this is a class that if you never plan on publishing something, or you're not sure about it, like, you'll still become a better GM and even a better player. I know that, it changed just writing. I think it's been now 5 years since I sent my first published RPG in, and it's probably actually a little longer than Adventure in. It was for Lamentations of the Flame Princess a long time ago. It was a different company back then. It didn't come out till this year, and it's a longer story. But like, it is definitely going through the process of that, especially going through playtesting, just completely changed the way I approach RPGs. And I think it's also, especially just not just playtesting within your group, but like when you start having other people run your adventures. And I've been lucky enough to have people who like let me watch, and let me watch somebody else run your game. Like, you just learn something you've written. You learn a tremendous amount. And again, I mean, there are different ways to approach it. And there have been times like I've started with a map. I think, that's something that's also just become a lot easier lately. First of all, you've got so many free, like, the Creative Commons thing is just so great. Like, so many free maps that if you want to start that way, that's a great way to start. Also, just like the software for creating maps, I'll just give one a plug. I have no affiliation with, but Dungeon Scrawl is something I've been using lately. It's totally free. I think you can pay a small amount if you want to have a creative thing, and you can make like really, really good looking maps really easily. And that's just, that's just takes away one more barrier of entry for somebody who thinks like, people who are like, oh, I'm not artistic, I couldn't draw a map, or you just have to use graph paper. You can do that stuff, but there's that thing. And it's, again, we're also in a time where, look, I guess zines have always been around, and, that's one of the things I've gotten, from your book, Stu, but like crowdfunding is around, which wasn't around. And desktop publishing has gotten so much better. So I think it's like a great, there's all this argument, and these arguments come up in every medium all the time. Oh, the golden age of like role-playing games is dead. Or I think somebody was just saying that because, all the OGL controversy and Wizard. Yeah, I know it's clickbait, and I always fall for it too.
Every time.
I guess I'm like catfished by it or whatever. But I really think this is this is a wonderful time to be playing. Like, I think we have the combination of all those people coming in from Critical Role, which I have my issues with in terms of the same thing you were saying, where I think it does sometimes make you think like you need to be a voice actor or something to run it, or a professional writer. I don't think you need to. But it's brought a lot of people in, and Stranger Things has. But at the same time, like, man, our indie RPGs just like thriving, at least in a creative thing. And like, I mean, my wallet, thanks to you guys a lot, but it's like, it's constantly going to new stuff. Like, I love discovering old things too, but it just is like, it's honestly, it's hard to keep up with, but I think it's a robust market. And it's also just, another thing I've been really proud of about SVA in particular has been great about getting a really diverse group of students. We sort of recruit internationally. So for my grad classes, I have students from literally all over the world, a lot of students from China, from the Middle East, Europe. I've had Africa before, India. And like, I really would love to see those voices in RPGs. I've loved seeing them in comics. I think we need more of that in RPGs. And it's, one of the things I'm definitely committed to is having a class that, feels safe for everybody, feels inclusive. It's usually never really a problem. I don't usually have to talk to somebody and say, hey, cool it. But I can do that if I need to. So, but I think it'll be, I'm really excited about this.
So classes need textbooks. My book, your textbook, you requiring all your students to buy my book?
So it's funny that you mentioned that. I know you were just joking that you had a one-liner, but I am going to put it on the curriculum. I never make people buy books. But here's what I can do though, is I can make the school buy books. And this is what genuinely, this is great because so if I definitely want to use actually your book, adventure modules. There's a bunch of books and also older modules and newer modules that I'd like people to be able to look at as like examples. And SVA has like a virtual library, so you can people will be able to check books out. And the school's been really great about ordering stuff like that. And so even, by the way, if students have suggestions or your listeners have suggestions, even if you're not taking a class, of things you feel like, oh, these would be great. This is what somebody should look at. Like there'll be things in it like Keep on the Borderlands, and there'll be some more. Clearly, there'll be some more recent stuff, but there are probably things I'm forgetting. So, yeah. But yes, Monsters, Aliens, and Holes in the Ground available in stores everywhere will definitely be on that list. I think there's still enjoying it. There's a lot to be learned from it.
Well, shit, if SVA is buying, then I got books for sale too, Mark. Hell yeah. So most importantly, also real quick, just went on this whole rant in the beginning about how Stu doesn't make jokes. Stu's not funny, and he comes with a joke at the end. Son of a bitch. Anyway, most importantly, the thing that we're here to talk about, Writing Adventures for Tabletop Role-Playing Games, is an online course through SVA. It runs February 6th through April 2nd. It's going to be Tuesday nights, Eastern Time, 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. It's 8 sessions. I've known Mark for a little bit. I love the stuff that Mark does as a writer, and I genuinely know that Mark is going to bring some magic to this course. Highly recommend this to everybody. Mark, it has been amazing chatting with you again. Where can people find you on the internet?
First of all, thank you so much for having me. On the internet, best place to find me is at Mark Sable, MarkSable on Instagram. The bad social network that we don't want to need. And then, but all the and all the new ones. It's just I'm lucky to have the same handle on all of them. But find me, hit me up if you got any questions about this class. Hit me up directly, please.
And speaking of RPGs that Mark has written, Chaotic Neutral, for those of you who just backed it, I just got my PDF of it. I'm really excited to get the physical copy in the mail soon. Mark, once the Kickstarter has been fully fulfilled, where will people be able to pick up Chaotic Neutral?
So if you go to, you can either go to Backerkit and look it up, Chaotic Neutral. So for those who don't know, it is a combination comic and role-playing game module. It is so either Backerkit, or if you just go to Chaotic Neutral on Kickstarter, maybe put Mark Sable in there too. If there's a link that should take you to Backerkit. For everybody that's filled out the survey, we've fulfilled it so far, and it should be in the mail to you. There are some people who haven't, but yeah. So we are now making it available to anyone.
Well, very cool. Yeah, if you've heard the episode a little while back during the pandemic, we did talk about chaotic neutral, so you can go back and listen to that in depth. Mark, thank you so much for joining us today. It's always great to chat with you, and hopefully I'll catch you next time you are in NYC. So this has been another amazing episode of the Vintage RPG Podcast. Stu, where can people find you on the internets?
You can find me on Instagram at Vintage RPG. Yeah, short and sweet.
That's cool. You can find me on Instagram as well at John McGuire RPG. That's where I post most of my stuff. If you like the show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Your reviews really do help other listeners to find us. If you really like the show, why not become a patron? Patreon.com/vintagerpg. We got a behind-the-scenes look at all the stuff Stu's writing. We got a behind-the-scenes look at 3, 2, 1 action. And by the time you listen to this episode, if you back the Sunrise Limited, the PDF should be in your inbox. So I'm pretty excited about that. We've also got new episodes earlier than anyone else gets them at some point on Friday or Saturday, depending on when we record them in the week, for as little as $1 a month. We got a tier where you can play RPGs with me once a month. Stu's got an ongoing West Marches campaign, and we've got a killer Discord community that we'd love for you to be a part of. Patreon.com/vintagerpg. So for Stu Horvath, I'm John Hambone McGuire. May the dice always roll in your favor.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Every review helps other listeners to find us. The Vintage RPG Podcast is a ham-fisted production. Music by Dega West. Art by Schaefer Brown. If you like the podcast, you should also consider becoming a patron at patreon.com.